It was an ordinary Saturday afternoon when everything changed. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just wandering around the neighborhood trying to clear my head. The air was cool and the sky was a dull gray, threatening rain but never quite delivering. I decided to take a detour through an old part of town I rarely visited, a quiet street lined with boarded-up shops and houses that looked like they hadn't seen life in years. As I walked, my eyes caught something gleaming near the base of a cracked brick wall. Curious, I bent down and found an old smartphone lying in the dirt. It looked beaten up, the screen was scratched and the case was worn, but surprisingly, the phone was still intact. I hesitated for a moment. Who could have lost a phone here? The place was almost deserted. I picked it up, wiping the grime off the screen. The device buzzed softly, startling me. It must have had some charge left. I glanced around quickly, no one seemed to be nearby. The street was silent except for the distant hum of a lawnmower somewhere down the road. A part of me wanted to leave the phone where it was, but my curiosity got the better of me. I slipped it into my pocket, telling myself I'd try to find its owner later. Besides, phones could contain all sorts of personal information. Maybe I could return it or at least figure out who it belonged to. As I continued my walk, I pulled the phone out to examine it closer. The screen lit up immediately, revealing a lock screen that was surprisingly simple, no passcode, just a swipe to unlock. I wasn't sure if I should, but I swiped anyway. The home screen appeared, cluttered with dozens of apps and files. I noticed a gallery icon blinking with a notification. Maybe someone had left recent photos or videos. I tapped the gallery and that's when I saw them, videos. But they weren't ordinary videos. The thumbnails were dark and blurry with strange shapes barely visible. The titles were random strings of letters and numbers, almost like coded messages. XJ84, Nightwatch, entry_07. My heart started to race, a mix of excitement and unease flooding over me. I realized that these videos might be important. Who would leave such content on a lost phone? And why here in this forgotten part of town? Questions buzzed in my mind as I sat down on a nearby bench to watch the first one. The video was grainy, shot with a shaky hand. It showed a dimly lit room, an empty basement maybe, with flickering lights and peeling wallpaper. At first, nothing seemed out of place, but then the camera lens caught movement in the shadows. Something dark and indistinct, slipping just beyond the edge of the light. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Was it just a trick of the camera? Or was something really there? The sound was muffled but eerie. Faint whispers, indistinguishable murmurs that sent chills down my spine. I swallowed hard and paused the video, my fingers trembling slightly. This wasn't just some forgotten family footage. Something about it felt off. Despite the creeping unease, I felt compelled to watch more. Maybe it was the mystery or the thrill of uncovering something hidden. Maybe it was something darker, a sense that I had stumbled onto something that wasn't meant for me. I continued scrolling through the videos, each one revealing something stranger than the last. Glimpses of shadowy figures lurking in abandoned buildings, cryptic messages scrawled on walls, and distorted voices repeating phrases I couldn't quite understand. Every clip left me with more questions than answers, but I was hooked. I glanced at my watch, an hour had passed, and the sky outside was starting to darken. The street had become emptier, and a cold wind blew through the trees. I zipped the phone into my jacket pocket and hurried home, the phone's mysterious presence weighing heavily in my mind. Once inside, I locked the door behind me and sat down at the kitchen table, the phone in front of me like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Who had made these videos? Why had they been left here, forgotten? And most importantly, what would happen if I kept watching? The discovery of the phone marked the beginning of something I couldn't yet understand, a journey into darkness, secrets, and a truth that would challenge everything I believed. The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease from the night before. The phone sat on my desk, almost glowing with the mystery it held. I was both fascinated and terrified. I didn't want to watch more, but at the same time, I couldn't resist. The urge to understand what I had found was overwhelming. I decided to dive back into the videos, this time in the safety of daylight. Maybe that would make a difference, less scary in the bright light of day. Sitting by the window, I unlocked the phone and opened the gallery again. The first video I chose to watch was titled simply entry_01. The screen flickered as the video started, showing a handheld camera moving through what looked like an old house. The footage was shaky and grainy, but the atmosphere was thick with silence. No background music, no narration, just the sounds of footsteps and breathing. The camera panned to a hallway with cracked walls and faded wallpaper. Suddenly, a door creaked open at the end of the hall. The person filming hesitated, then stepped inside. The room was dark, but there was something unsettling, an old rocking chair moving slowly back and forth as if pushed by an invisible force. I leaned closer, heart pounding. The video was silent except for the creaking and the slow, rhythmic rocking. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the video ended. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I had just seen. Was this some kind of ghost story? A prank? The feeling in the room seemed so real that I could almost hear the cold draft and smell the dust. Curiosity pushed me to watch another video, this one labeled midnight_call. This clip was different. It was shot outdoors on a foggy night. The camera followed a narrow, winding road surrounded by dense trees. The only light came from the faint glow of a flashlight. As the camera moved forward, strange noises echoed, twigs snapping, distant whispers, a faint, eerie humming. Suddenly, the camera swung around sharply as if the filmer had heard something behind them. For a brief second, a shadowy figure appeared in the distance, standing still among the trees. It was impossible to tell if it was human or something else. Then the video cut out. My pulse quickened. These videos weren't just creepy, they felt like a record of something dangerous, something alive and watching. The next video was even more disturbing. It showed a room filled with strange symbols painted in black on the walls, circles, lines, and shapes that looked like some kind of ritual markings. The camera moved slowly, revealing candles burning low and a small altar made of twisted branches and bones. A voice whispered faintly in the background, but it was impossible to make out the words. I played the video several times, trying to catch the whispers, but they remained just beyond understanding. A wave of dread washed over me. This wasn't just random footage. Someone had been documenting something secret, something they probably shouldn't have been involved with. I closed the gallery and sat back, my mind racing. Who was this person? Why had they recorded these videos and left them behind? And why had the phone ended up abandoned on that lonely street? I tried to put the videos out of my mind, but they lingered like shadows in my thoughts. Every now and then, I would catch myself imagining the rocking chair moving, the shadowy figure in the trees, or the whispered voices. I told myself to be rational, maybe these were just films made for a project or some kind of elaborate prank. But deep down, I knew something was off. The atmosphere of the videos was too real, too intense. Still, the phone was a puzzle I couldn't stop trying to solve. I knew I had to watch more, to understand the full story hidden in these creepy clips. But a part of me was afraid of what I might find next. The next few days turned into a strange routine. I found myself drawn to the phone, even as a knot of fear tightened in my stomach each time I unlocked it. Every video I watched seemed to deepen the mystery and increase my sense of dread. It was as if the phone was pulling me further into a dark story I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of. One afternoon, I sat in my dimly lit living room, the curtains drawn tight against the fading sunlight. The phone glowed softly on the coffee table. I hesitated, took a deep breath, and pressed play on the next video titled Watcher_09. The video started with shaky footage of a person walking through a dense forest at twilight. The trees were tall, casting long shadows across the ground. The air in the video felt heavy, thick with fog or mist. The sound was barely there, just the crunching of footsteps and the occasional distant call of an animal. As the camera moved forward, a low humming noise began, faint but growing steadily louder. Then, suddenly, the camera swung to the right, revealing a clearing bathed in an unnatural blue light. Standing in the center was a figure, tall and thin, with a featureless face that seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. My breath caught in my throat. The figure didn't move, but there was something about it that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The camera trembled, and the person filming whispered, "Don't look away." Before I could process what I was seeing, the video cut out abruptly. I sat frozen for a moment, heart pounding. Who or what was that figure? Why was it standing there like some kind of sentinel? And why did the person filming warn not to look away? I pressed play on the next video, entry_15. This one was filmed inside a small room cluttered with strange objects, candles, mirrors, and pieces of old paper with writing I couldn't understand. The camera zoomed in on a book lying open on a table, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and sketches of shadowy creatures. Suddenly, the lights flickered and a cold wind swept through the room, rustling the pages. The camera shook violently and a shadow darted across the frame. A soft, unintelligible whisper echoed through the speakers. Then the video ended. My hands shook as I set the phone down. These videos weren't just recordings, they felt like warnings. Like the person filming had captured glimpses of something dangerous and otherworldly. I couldn't tell if the videos were connected or if they were separate incidents. But the common thread was clear darkness, shadows, things lurking just out of sight. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind against the windows sounded like something from the videos. I kept imagining that faceless figure in the forest standing silently watching me. The next day, I decided to dig deeper into the phone. I looked through the messages, the notes, and even the calendar. There were hints, dates marked in red, cryptic notes like, "The night is near," and "Don't trust the light." It was as if the phone's owner was tracking something, preparing for something terrifying. I started to feel like I was being watched too. Strange noises echoed in my apartment, my phone would buzz with no notifications, and sometimes I thought I saw shadows moving in the corners of my eyes. The videos weren't just creepy anymore. They were a doorway to something I didn't understand, something that might be real and dangerous. But I couldn't stop. The mystery had me trapped. After days of being consumed by the strange videos, I knew I had to learn more about the phone's owner. The mystery wasn't just about the creepy footage anymore, it was personal. Someone had lived this nightmare, and their story was hidden inside this device. I started by scrolling through the phone's contacts. Most of the names were just initials or strange nicknames: M, Shadow, Watcher. There were a few real-sounding names too, but none with photos or much info. It felt like the owner had deliberately hidden their identity, or maybe they were trying to keep a low profile. Next, I checked the messages. Most were deleted, but a few remained cryptic texts exchanged with someone called L. One message stood out: "It's coming closer. I don't know how much time I have. If anything happens, this phone holds the truth." That message sent chills down my spine. The owner was clearly scared, desperate even. They had been documenting something dangerous and wanted whoever found the phone to know the truth. I dug deeper into the photos and files. There were blurry pictures of a small town, streets, houses, an old church with a broken steeple. I recognized the place immediately. It was a town not far from where I lived. This meant the owner might still be nearby or connected to the area. My next step was to look for social media accounts linked to the phone. After some digging, I found an email address saved under a notes app. I searched online and discovered a profile that matched: a person named Alex Turner. The profile was sparse, mostly posts about urban exploration and photography. The last post was dated 6 months ago with a caption: "Some places are better left alone." Alex Turner. The name felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. I checked local news websites and found something that made my blood run cold: a missing person report filed about a man named Alex Turner who disappeared 6 months ago near the very town I had seen in the photos. The details were vague, but the report mentioned strange occurrences around the area, reports of odd noises, people seeing shadowy figures, and unexplained disappearances. I realized I was holding the phone of someone who had vanished under mysterious circumstances. The videos weren't just creepy clips, they were a final record of Alex's descent into something dark and terrifying. I tried calling one of the contacts again, but no answer. I sent messages but got nothing back. It was like the phone was a ghost connected to a person who had disappeared into thin air. As I pieced together Alex's story, I felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. What had happened to him? Had he fallen victim to whatever was lurking in those videos? And was I in danger now simply by having the phone? The more I learned, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a lost phone. It was a warning, a cry for help. And I was caught in the middle of a story far bigger and darker than I had ever imagined. After uncovering the chilling details about Alex Turner, the phone's owner who had mysteriously vanished, I felt a mix of urgency and fear. I needed to find out what had really happened to him. Maybe the phone held more clues, or someone still knew where he was. But every attempt to reach out felt like stepping deeper into a shadow I couldn't escape. First, I tried calling the contacts saved on the phone again, starting with the one labeled L. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice shaky but clear. "Hi, I found Alex's phone. If you're listening, please get back to me. I want to help." Hours passed without a response. I sent texts too short, to the point, hoping to get at least one reply. Nothing. That night, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. It was the mysterious phone, lighting up in my hand. I checked the screen. A new message had appeared, but no sender ID. The text was just one sentence: "Stop digging or you'll disappear too." My heart raced. Was this a prank? Or was someone or something really watching me? I decided to ignore the warning, telling myself it was some twisted joke. But the sense of being watched grew stronger every day. Strange noises echoed outside my window at night. Footsteps, whispers, and once, what sounded like a door creaking open in the empty hallway. I even caught glimpses of a shadow moving just beyond my peripheral vision, disappearing whenever I looked directly. Despite the fear, I reached out to local authorities, hoping they could help track Alex's last known location. But their files were thin, a missing person report with no leads, no suspects, just dead ends. Frustrated, I turned to online communities, forums for urban explorers, paranormal enthusiasts, and missing persons groups. I shared what I knew, posted screenshots from the phone, and asked for help. Some responses were encouraging, others were dismissive or suspicious. A few warned me to be careful, saying the videos were linked to dangerous cults or supernatural forces. Others thought it was just an elaborate viral stunt. Then something even stranger happened. The phone's battery began draining unusually fast even when I wasn't using it. Apps opened on their own, playing random videos or showing cryptic messages in strange fonts. One night, the phone called me, a silent call with just static on the other end. When I answered, I heard a faint whisper, "Find the door." The phrase sent shivers down my spine. What door? And why was I being pulled deeper into this mystery? I realized the phone wasn't just a device. It was a link, a conduit to something beyond normal understanding. It was like the videos were coming alive, reaching out from the screen into my world. The warnings, the messages, the strange phenomena, all pointed to one thing. I was tangled in something dangerous. But I couldn't stop. Not now. I had to find Alex, or at least find out what had happened to him. The phone held secrets, and I was determined to uncover them, even if it meant facing the darkness head-on. After the eerie message warning me to stop digging, things around me began to change. It was subtle at first, the kind of small oddities you might easily dismiss. But over time, the boundary between what was on the phone and what was happening in my life started to blur. One evening, as I sat watching the videos on the phone, a cold chill swept through the room. The air felt thick and heavy like the atmosphere in those creepy clips. The shadows cast by the lamp flickered unnaturally, stretching and twisting as if alive. My skin prickled with a mix of fear and disbelief. Then came the sounds. I heard faint whispers coming from the phone's speakers, not from any video playing, but static whispers, almost like voices speaking just out of comprehension. I leaned in closer, straining to catch what was being said. The words were fragmented but repeated over and over. Find the door, that phrase haunted me for days. I couldn't get it out of my head. As time passed, strange occurrences escalated. Lights would flicker without explanation. My phone would suddenly turn on by itself, showing brief flashes of the videos but cutting off before anything fully appeared. Sometimes I'd catch glimpses of shadowy figures lurking just beyond the edges of my vision, disappearing the moment I looked directly at them. One night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside my bedroom. Heart pounding, I grabbed the phone from the nightstand and flipped on the flashlight app. The hallway was empty, but the temperature had dropped noticeably. I could see my breath in the air. Then, in the corner of the hallway, a dark figure stood motionless, as if watching me. When I blinked, it was gone. I started to question my sanity. Was I imagining things? Or was something from those videos somehow crossing over into my reality? The more I interacted with the phone, the more I felt its pull, like it was alive, feeding on my fear and curiosity. The videos seemed less like recordings and more like windows into another world, a world where something dark and malevolent waited just beyond the veil. I tried to resist watching them, but every time I locked the phone away, it would find its way back into my hands. A strange compulsion took hold of me, pushing me to explore further, to uncover the truth no matter the cost. The line between the videos and my reality blurred until I could no longer tell where one ended and the other began. Shadows moved in my apartment just like in the footage. The whispers followed me everywhere. Even my dreams were invaded by the flickering images of the faceless figure and the mysterious door I was told to find. It was clear now, whatever Alex Turner had recorded, whatever had consumed him, was not just confined to the screen. It had followed me home, and it wasn't done yet. Haunted by the cryptic message to find the door, I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. The videos, the phone's strange behavior, and the growing sense of dread pushed me to act. Whatever door Alex Turner had referred to was the key to unlocking this nightmare, or maybe to ending it. I started by retracing Alex's steps using the photos and videos as my guide. Most of the footage showed abandoned buildings, empty streets, and a few shots of the small town nearby. I made a list of locations that appeared repeatedly: an old church, a derelict house on the outskirts, and a forgotten basement beneath one of the buildings. My first stop was the church, the one with the broken steeple I recognized from the photos. It was nothing but a skeleton now, crumbling walls and shattered windows. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. I wandered the empty pews, my flashlight cutting through the darkness until I found a door partially hidden behind debris. It was locked tight. No signs of anything unusual, but the sense of being watched lingered. Next, I visited the abandoned house. The door creaked loudly as I pushed it open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. My heart pounded as I descended into the basement. The walls were covered with strange symbols, the same ones I'd seen in the videos. In the corner, I spotted an old wooden door, almost blending into the shadows. It looked ancient and worn, but something about it felt wrong. I reached out to touch the doorknob and a cold wave of fear swept over me. The whispers I'd heard from the phone echoed in my mind. I hesitated, then pulled out the phone, opening the video titled Entry_15, again, the one with the ritual symbols and altar. As I watched, a sudden realization hit me: this door wasn't just a physical barrier. It was a gateway, a threshold between our world and whatever dark realm the videos had revealed. Gathering my courage, I turned the knob and slowly pushed the door open. Beyond was a narrow passageway shrouded in darkness leading to somewhere unknown. The air was colder here, heavier. My flashlight flickered as I stepped forward. The deeper I went, the more the world seemed to shift. The shadows grew thicker, and whispers surrounded me from every direction. I didn't know what I'd find at the end of this passage or if I would find anything at all. But I had to keep going. The passageway beyond the door was narrow and suffocating, its darkness pressing in on me from all sides. Every step echoed softly, but I felt like the shadows themselves were moving closer. My flashlight flickered, threatening to go out, and I gripped the phone tightly, its eerie glow the only steady light. As I moved deeper, the air grew colder, thick with a damp, earthy smell, like an old crypt or forgotten tomb. The whispers I'd heard before became louder, more urgent, but still impossible to understand. I forced myself to keep going, driven by a mix of fear and determination. At the end of the passage, the space suddenly opened into a small chamber. The walls were covered in the same cryptic symbols from the videos, and the basement, black circles and lines that seemed to writhe and twist in the dim light. In the center stood an altar, similar to the one I had seen before, made of gnarled branches and strange objects I couldn't identify. And then I saw it, a figure crouched in the shadows by the altar. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, but as I stepped closer, it shifted, revealing a pale face. Hollow eyes staring blankly, a mouth moving silently. It was Alex Turner. His skin was ghostly pale, and his expression was empty, as if he was no longer truly there. He reached out a trembling hand, whispering the words I had heard on the phone. "Find the door. Stop the darkness." I realized then that Alex hadn't disappeared. He had been trapped here, caught between worlds. Whatever ritual or force he had encountered had pulled him into this shadow realm, leaving only the phone and videos behind as warnings. I felt a surge of fear but also resolve. I couldn't leave him or anyone else, trapped in this nightmare. Using the clues from the videos and the symbols on the walls, I began to replicate the ritual Alex had started, hoping to close the door and seal the passage between our world and the darkness beyond. The air trembled, shadows writhed, and a chilling hell filled the chamber. For a moment, I thought I would be consumed by the darkness myself. Then, slowly, the shadows receded. The heavy air lightened and the whispers faded into silence. Alex's eyes fluttered open, and for the first time since I found the phone, he looked alive. Weak but real. Together, we climbed out of the basement, the door ceiling shut behind us as if it had never been there. Outside, the world felt brighter, safer. The phone, now silent and lifeless, had given up its secrets. I never found out who left it on that street or why. But I knew one thing for sure: some mysteries are real and some doors are better left unopened. 24.